everyone, it's me Tara, and today I want to talk about how furry films have changed a lot of us in more ways than we tend to think. Do you remember the first time a movie made you feel like an outsider, but in a good way? Not because the hero was strong, not because they were cool, but because they were different. For a lot of us, furry films weren't just cartoons about humanoid animals. They were the first stories that told us you don't have to be what others consider to be normal in order to belong. And whether people realize it or not, these films have a tendency to shape entire generations, like mine. Today we're talking about furry films, the impact they had on us, and the powerful lessons hidden beneath the fur. But first off, what even is a furry film? When people hear furry, they usually think of the fandom first. However, furry storytelling has actually existed long before the fandom itself did. And the internet. A furry film is simply a movie where anthropomorphic animals act, speak, and feel like people. That is what anthropomorphic means, by the way, as in human-like. But that small change does something very huge. It removes our previously existing real-life understanding of culture, social class, race, and so on. And it replaces it with something that is pretty universal, which is identity. Because when the character isn't human, you can represent almost anyone. And suddenly the story becomes much easier to see yourself in. Now here's a pattern that most of you are going to be aware of. Furry movies love outsiders. The runt of the litter, so to speak. The one that doesn't quite belong, the weird one, and so on. Because animals naturally live in strict roles and hierarchies, such as predator versus prey, pack versus loner, wild versus civilized. Does this sound familiar? These films quietly mirrored real human society, but in a way that we, back when we were kids, could emotionally understand before we could intellectually understand it. And for many of us, growing up feeling different, shy, introverted, autistic, anxious, or simply just not fitting in a general sense, these films became emotional lifelines. They told us that being different is not necessarily a flaw, but it is a story. Take a moment to think about The Lion King and how Simba runs away believing that he is responsible for the death of his father even though he isn't. Or Kung Fu Panda, where Po is told he is the wrong species for greatness. Zootopia, Judy is told that a rabbit cannot be a real cop. Or Balto, a half-wolf rejected by both humans and wolves because of his mixed ancestry. Or How to Train Your Dragon. Hiccup and Toothless are both misfits in their own world. Granted, it is for different reasons, but still misfits. These stories repeat the same emotional core. You do not belong here. And for kids who have been feeling that way growing up, that line tends to hit pretty hard. These films didn't just entertain outsiders, they made outsiders heroes or the main characters of the story. And for many kids growing up, these furry films teach some very good lessons. The most important one, at least in my opinion, is the one that is you don't have to become someone else to become accepted. So many furry films revolve around this struggle. I need to change who I am to fit in. And the story always punishes that idea, and for good reason. The hero succeeds the moment they stop pretending to be what they aren't, and instead just be what they are at their core. That's a very important lesson for anyone to learn, and a huge plus for kids, because childhood is full of pressure to fit into boxes. Furry films quietly whisper, you don't need to become some random dick's idea of normal. You just need to become yourself instead. This lesson shows up almost everywhere. For example, in Kung Fu Panda, Po spends the entire film trying to become a serious and graceful Kung Fu master like the rest of the Furious 5. But he fails miserably. When does he succeed? When he understands that there is no hidden technique, there is no secret ingredient, you just gotta fight in your own way. So, Po wins by fighting like Po. It's messy, it's unconventional, it's a little weird and funny, but it works. And that message is a huge for kids. You don't need to erase your weirdness to succeed. Another pretty good one is fear comes from not understanding others. A recurring theme that you may notice, especially within recent furry films, is predators being feared, prey misunderstanding and judging predators unreasonably harshly, species being divided. Stories tackle prejudice in a way that a kid can process safely, instead of basically forcing the kid to get involved in politics and race politics. It becomes wolves and sheep, foxes and rabbits, lions and hyenas, and the lesson was always the same. Fear grows in ignorance. Understanding, however, destroys that fear. Many people learned empathy for the first time as a child through animal characters, and that lesson sticks for life. At least in most cases. Another pretty good lesson is that strength does not exclusively come from aggression. The strongest characters are rarely the most violent. Strength is shown as loyalty, courage to stand alone for what you believe is right, protecting others who can't protect themselves due to one reason or another, and kindness. These films redefined strength for kids who did not feel strong. You didn't have to be the toughest, you didn't have to be the loudest, you just had to stand your ground. And that is a strength of its own. Another lesson that I imagine lonely people were affected a lot by is found family can be real family. See, furry films love found families, unlikely groups, a bunch of misfits forming their own packs, or strangers becoming so friendly with each other that they're basically family. For many viewers, this was the first time they saw that idea. Family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you chooses you back as well. It goes both ways. And that message hits hard for people who feel like outsiders. Another reason why furry films tend to hit different is because animals create emotional distance, and emotional distance makes emotional lessons easier to accept. If a human tells you a life story, you may end up resisting it, but if a fox or a lion teaches it, your guard tends to drop, especially as a kid because, well, foxes and lions are cool. So you absorb the message without even realizing it. Furry films are kind of like an emotional stealth bomb in that sense. They sneak deep life lessons into your childhood, and many years later, you begin to realize those lessons and how they had an impact on you. And that is the lasting impact of furry films. They didn't just entertain us or make us look at cute animals, they shaped how many of us see identity, difference, empathy, belonging, and strength. For some people, they even inspired creative art in the form of just, digital art or writing, and entire communities, like the furry fandom. Not because of the animals themselves necessarily, but because of what they represented, which is the right to exist as you are, the most important right for any human being. So yeah, furry films weren't just childhood movies, they were emotional training wheels for life to a certain extent. They taught us that being different isn't something to hide, that empathy is stronger than fear, and that belonging isn't about fitting in necessarily. It's about finding your own pack, finding your own piece of the puzzle. And maybe that's why these stories stay with us even long after childhood, because deep down, we still kind of need to remember these lessons. I can give an example of my own. For example, Ice Age. And when I say Ice Age, I mean exclusively 1 to 3, not the rest of the absolute garbage slop that came after the third movie. Seriously, 1, 2, 3, perfect. Would absolutely recommend, 10 out of 10. Everything that came after, fucking hell. During the first Ice Age film, Diego, which, of course I fell in love with the cat character. Of course I love the cat character. Diego starts the film as the villain. He joins the herd, planning to betray them. He lies, he manipulates, but something changes later down the line, when the herd risks their own life in order to protect his. He realizes he does not have to be the villain. He does not have to stay the person that he was. And so Ice Age teached a powerful lesson as well as idea. Your past does not lock your future. You can change for the better and you can grow. The second most important lesson that it taught me is that courage is helping others, even when it is admittedly difficult. Returning the human baby is dangerous. It slows them down, it puts them at risk, and they gain nothing from it. Yet they do it anyway. Why? Because helping someone vulnerable is simply the right thing to do. And that is how Ice Age showed me when I was a kid that kindness is a form of bravery. Not flashy heroism, not some cool bombastic event, just doing the right thing when it is inconvenient. That right there is courage and bravery. But yeah, that's going to be about it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again later some other time. Goodbye.